Good morning, welcome to Ag Talking to Raw, where me and William talk ag and other things that are on our mind. So he made me mad, so I punched him in the head multiple times, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
I have another one
Where?
here.
Yeah. So what did you do? What'd you hit your head on?
On the excavator.
Excavator? What excavator? Downstairs?
Yes.
I wondered how you did that. Anyway, first one he was in the tractor when we were baling hay, and the second one I guess was the excavator. So don't touch those, because if you touch those, then it shuts it off, and then we won't have anything. So what we're going to talk about today could be multiple things. Pretty much agricultural stuff. So what are we going to do this coming year? It is the end of 2022. Good riddance, thank God. And, you know, it was a year of worry, painful stuff, just terrible. It was an awful year. It was an awful year. I'm just going to say it now. I mean, we have our health, obviously. He's sick. You sick?
Yep.
You had a high fever, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he was pretty hot. As a matter of fact, his feet were like little fireballs. But we got his fever down. She took his temperature this morning at about 4 o'clock, and it was, what'd you say, 107?
Yes.
And then 107. I said, that's not possible. Yeah, he would be dead, convulsing, seizing, having a mess. So she had taken his temperature 3 times, and it was 101 and then 100 point whatever. So he's alive. He probably had about 101. He had 101 fever yesterday, so it was, just not fun, but such is life, that we all get sick and we all feel bad. But Mr. William here, he's a pretty tough kid. You tough?
Yes.
Yep. He says yep a lot. Yes. Yeah. So, so the plans for 2022 are to just spend the last day of 2022. I got a grinder mixer I have to fix up. And after that, are you going to torture me? Why don't you go find something to play with? Your mom's fun to play with. Go play with her. Go get her, boy. Anyway, she, yeah. You got your wristwatch?
Yep.
Go give me the clicker. I'll turn on Mickey Mouse for you.
Okay.
Go ahead. Anyway, so 2022 is done. It's done. Thankfully, it's done. Almost done with hauling corn. I've got about 4 loads to go. Yeah, I should have 4 loads to go. I'm going to load one up today for Monday. Tarp it. Well, I don't know if I'm going to load it today because it's supposed to rain all day today. So, that kind of screws the pooch on a lot of things that I'd like to do versus the things that I have to get done. But, don't do anything we're not doing anything this year for New Year's because William is sick and he doesn't have COVID. There is a gathering today between 3 and 7, and we'll probably go to that. I don't know if we will or not. Depends on how bad he feels. If his fever spikes, I'm not going to go. Or he won't go, and I'll stay home. Teresa can go, or I'll go. Teresa don't go. I don't know. I don't want to go by myself. But I do have work to do. So now that 22 is behind us and we struggle to pay our bills because okay, here we go. And you're going to have to take it back down there. Hold on a second. Daddy knows what Mickey Mouse is, right? Oh, it's Bluey. Oh. Okay, take it back downstairs. He's good. I don't like Bluey most of the time, but I'll be listening to see if it is one of those things. You can really see my scar on my face right here. See that? Today you can. I don't know why. It's from the burns, I guess. Burnt my face on the stove. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. So as we struggle to pay our bills from last year, a lot of us do. There's a lot of us out here in Hunterdon County and other areas. I had some pretty dismal crops, and they looked really good in spots, but where they were bad, buddy, they were bad. We were pulling 180, 200 bushel corn off of pretty good amount of it. Some of it was like 120, but once we got that last 225 acres was all under 50 bushel, and of that the last 40 acres that I dealt with were 0. I went down there with the combine and it was just a zero, big fat zero, big fat zero. So, you know, when you have a big fat zero on 40 acres, that takes a toll. It takes a toll on your crop. So we probably averaged in that 140 bushel range on the first go round, and 140, 145 on the first, you know, the first that we did that was doing really, really well. But when we got to those under 50 bushels, you know, it's, let's do a little bit of shitty math here. And I'm not going to do it off the cuff, but so say 140 for the fun of it, and then we'll do 45, and then we'll do 0. We'll divide by 3. Yeah, right. That ain't right. I can't remember how to average. I'm retarded today. Anyway, I don't think you do that. So, yeah, when you average, right, you do, well, let's, 140 plus 50 plus, let's just do 1, and we divide that by 3, right? It's not possible. No. I'm wrong. I have to do it divided by retarded. 140. See, I never do math online, live. 140. 140 plus 50 plus 1 divided by 650. That does not make any sense. I'm going to have to shut this off. Well, I don't have to shut it off. I could edit it. Yeah, I could edit it. That's correct. It is divided by 3. So those are the 3 averages, you know. 63 bushels. I was right on the money. Right on the money, about 63 bushels to the acre. That's what we averaged. It was a break-even year. That's it.
Yeah.
Barely break-even.
Barely.
Well, if it wasn't for the soybeans, yeah, it was a break-even year. It's ridiculous. You have no idea. You have no idea how stressful that was. I mean, we were doing really good. Yeah, I forgot to hit the equals button. That's what the problem was. Yeah, so it was a break-even year. Break-even years suck because here you are left. We did a little better than break-even with the beans and stuff, so that it kind of equaled out. But, of course, I had other bills that needed to be paid, you know. There were some back bills. There were some other things. But whatever. Life is good. It was a break-even year on the row crop. Still have the hay crop to go. So I'll be okay. You know, I'm not going to bank anything, that's for sure. And I'm not going to be buying any new tractors or anything like that. Of course, the inputs that we put into this year with the Great Plains vertical tillage, it was $93,000. And I didn't take a loan on that. And obviously, the corn planter, which I only paid $11,000 for, and of course, I'm probably going to have to put somewhere around between $12,000 and $18,000 into. So, if we do $18,000, that's $29,000 in total for that corn planter. Which is whatever, you know, such is life, you know. Of course, I haven't hooked it up to anything electronic yet, which I'm going to have to do. I'll probably pull the 5020 out because that'd be the easiest thing to hook a 12 volts up to and hook the planter up to and unfold it. And, you know, because I don't have to run through a cab or anything, just use the 5020. And that would be fun to do today. Maybe a little later today, I don't know. So we've got that crap to deal with. What else was I going to say? So, you know, it's just break-even years. But I'm looking forward to next year. I really am. I'm looking really forward to next year. You know, I spent over $30,000 in cover crops this fall. You know, a lot of people think, oh, well, you know, how much money you put into cover crops. Cover crops are not a cheap thing. They're cheaper than fertilizer because to cover 1,100 acres that I did, I didn't do 1,100 acres. I did 1,000 acres. I was about 100 acres short, right? Was that 100 acres short? What didn't I do? Yeah. I was 100 acres short on the cover crops, which is fine because there was grass already growing in there. It was a very difficult year to kill that grass because of the drought. But there was already grass growing in there, so there's a living root already on that ground. So I'm not really worried about that. I still have to buy cover crop for 370 acres for the spring. It's ground that I just picked up. I bid on and rented it, and I have to do another one of those here today or tomorrow. But anyway, so I've got to get that ground bid. I have another bidding I have to deal with. But anyways, I got to get that cover crop on. So I'm not really too terribly worried about that because obviously I have the hay. But what are we going to do? You know, how many acres are we going to plant? I've got 600 and... the hell is it? All the soybeans are wheat. There's 450. 400. There's 400 acres there of wheat. Plus corn, which is wheat. I've got like 700, close to 700 acres of wheat planted. I'm not going to harvest 700 acres of wheat, obviously. I'm only going to harvest something like 300 acres of wheat. So if we got 1,100 acres that are currently wheat and 400 acres, 1,000, 7, 8, 9, 10, 300 acres of rye. And then, of course, we have the non-covered ground. That is, it'll be fine. A non-covered ground, which I'm going to plant anyway. Plus, I've got another 130 acres that I'm going to kill off down in another farm if I can get that taken care of. I'm probably going to kill another 200 acres of hay. And in the fall, I'm going to rotate back into a Timothy hay crop on some of this ground. So I'm not really too concerned, with what I'm doing. So anyway, so that puts me somewhere around 16 to 1,800. I'm going to do 16 to 1,800 acres of row crops. I don't know if I'm going to do 2,000, but 16 to 18, so somewhere in 16 to 1,800 acres, which puts me at 1,300 acres of corn, and the rest is beans. So 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, that's 500 acres of soybeans. Excuse me. So, that's quite a bit. So, what are we going to do? What are we going to put in the ground? What type of seed are we going to put in the ground? Well, last year I used FS, Farm Service, not Farm Service, but FS Growmark. And the it was $236 a bag for that seed, approximately, for each one. $236. Where's my phone? 2.5 acres. Clear. 236 divided by 2.5. That's $94 an acre in seed. So we times that by 1,300. That'll if I buy that seed, but the seed price has gone up, so it's going to be about $130,000 in seed corn, 130,000 in seed corn. For you non-farmers out there that are watching this, you're probably like, holy smokes, 130,000 in seed corn plus. Let's just go with the soybeans. Let's see how many seeds we did. Approximately 70 pounds, right? It was about 70 pounds. So, 1.6 bushels, 1.6 bushels. Not to be 1.5, 1.25 bushels. So, let's see. So that would be times 1.25, which is fine. That's $50 an acre, and we could times that by 500, which will give me $30,000 for soybean seed. So we're looking at $1.50. At least $150,000 for seed, right? 150, probably going to be closer to 170 for inflation prices. There's been drought all over the country. 150, 160, 170,000 for seed. Well, I don't want to spend that much money on seed, and I'm not saving seed beans or seed corn, but there are some companies out there like Cropland. Cropland, I do believe, is part of the same company that does, what is the name of that? Hybrid 85. I think that it's the same company that's doing Hybrid 85. Hybrid 85 is definitely a cheap option. I kind of like the Cropland numbers and what they're doing. And, I'm looking for another seed company. I've looked at several seed companies. Pioneer Seed is really expensive. I'm sorry. It's just really expensive. Using a roller crimper on rye allows Virginia farmer Rob Hinton to create a mat that blocks sun, shades the ground, preserves the moisture, and suppresses weeds. This regenerative ag thing that I'm doing, for those of you that don't like what I'm doing, it's coming. This is an old way of farming with a new twist. So back in the day when your great-grandparents farmed back before the 1940 or even beyond that. My great-grandparents, they came here in early teens, and had a family, bought the home farm here in 1925. They farmed with rotational farming, cover crops, manure as fertilizer and stuff like that. And they produced a crop that raised enough grain and silage for their cattle and whatever they had. They had rabbits, chickens, a lot of poultry on the home farm there. But they did it that way. We have this. We have the ability to use commercial fertilizers, and we also have something that they didn't have, which was the herbicides. So herbicides, selective herbicides and non-selective herbicides are a tool that we have that they didn't have. So a lot of people are kind of dinging me about going organic. Oh, you're going to be one of those organic farmers, I said, no, I'm not going to be I'm not an organic farmer. Not going to be an organic farmer, but I'm going to use the organic side of it coupled with the modern commercial side of it, what they would call conventional side of it, where you would use contact and residual herbicides or selective and non-selective herbicides in your operation. So I'm a step above the organic guys, because I'm not going to have to deal with weeds, the way that they would deal with weeds, which they would have to go through with a flamer or a weed zapper or anything like that. I could just go through because the technology in the bag of seed is going to be a Roundup Ready Liberty Link stacked variety. I can use Ignite or Liberty or glyphosate, or glufosinate, glyphosate Roundup. I can use those in my practice there. So if I do have escaped weeds with the within the first few in the first foot of growth on that corn, my brain is not working today, but if I start seeing some weeds coming on that I need to take care of, I can easily just go through and spray them. You get corn that's chest high and you start seeing fall panicum or something coming up. You're going to have to do something about it if the residual didn't catch those. Now, residual herbicides, they kind of like to be worked in. If they don't get that rainfall that you're looking for within a few days of application, you are going to have an issue because it doesn't incorporate into the soil enough to stop those seeds from germinating. That's in the selective herbicide. Of course, most of you know that. God, I got heartburn. I drank that coffee. Yeah, so you kind of have to, your herbicide application or timing is key. This past year, I was in a hurry because I had 650 acres of crops to spray. And I did things a little wrong, and I know what my problems are. I mean, my dismal crops are about 30% my fault. The rest was drought. When you have a good rainfall, it'll cover up some of your mistakes. But we didn't have that good rainfall, so it couldn't cover up most of my mistakes. So that 30% my fault turned into 100% my fault because of the rainfall. There was a residual herbicide that I used that we just didn't get the rain. And when you don't have the rain, it doesn't incorporate. It doesn't stop the germination of the seed. Now, luckily for us, I planted through a lot of standing hay. Where I planted through the standing hay, my problem was that the hay wasn't flat and it shaded the seedling, and it was struggling for light. And then before it got to a point where it could thrive above the canopy of this hay crop, it dried up. So it never fully reached its potential. That's my fault. That is my fault. I should have went out there with something and laid that stuff down. Even if I'd have took the old disc harrow and just went over it once and flattened that grass and roughed up the ground a little bit, it wouldn't have been fun, but that would have allowed me for that seedling to take off up through that grass and grow. And it didn't. So that's my fault. This year I have the vertical tillage machine with rolling baskets, and trust me, buddy, it is going to lay all of that cover crop flat as a pancake and just roll it and possibly terminate it to the point where I don't have to go through with a contact herbicide. I will go through with a residual, even though it's more than likely not necessary. But I'm going to go through with the residual anyway. Atrazine in the corn. Atrazine is still one of the best herbicides to take out those some grasses and the broadleaf weeds that it does take out. It does its job. And I used Bicep Magnum and Callisto. That's what I used. I did that on the majority of these acres, well, all the acres of corn, because it was a good herbicide program. And the contact herbicide was glyphosate, and that burned down. Well, because we were dry, the grass was never actively growing, so it was what they called the living dead. The grass was green, still pulling moisture, but it was rotted off. It was dead. It just was not dead. It wasn't dead enough to start to decay because we didn't have the moisture. So that screwed me up. Now with the vertical tillage machine, rolling that stuff flat, I'm not going to have an issue. And the other issue that I have that I should have been more vigilant on was lime application. I thought I had more time to apply lime than what I actually did. So I bought a lot of lime, and I put 2 to 2.5 tons of lime to the acre on the ground that I felt was, the pH was pretty dismal. It was 6.2 and below to 5.8. It was in there, and that's pretty dismal because you don't grow organic matter in soil that is that poor. Okay, so when the soil is that poor, and because poor pH, your microbiology, the mycorrhizal fungi, it doesn't grow. It doesn't break down your residue fast enough. It doesn't allow everything to work good. So this year, on the ground that I didn't have the lime on, I'm going to put a ton to the acre, and that vertical tillage machine is going to cut nice clean slots through all of those fields, which will open up the soil just enough so when we get a rain, that lime will wash into those slots and start to work faster than what it did this year. At least these are my plans. You don't listen to anything that I do. If you don't agree with what I'm doing, you don't have to do anything. I'm not telling anybody to do anything that I do. I'm just telling you that this way of farming is coming, and eventually it's going to be rammed down your throats. If you know anything about what's going on in Washington right now, you will understand it's going to be rammed down our throats. And I'm going to do a little prediction here. In the next 10 years, there's going to be a big push to get the older diesel engines out of use. And they're doing it in California. If you have a truck that has an engine that's older than 10 years, you're not allowed to drive that truck in their state. Yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger did that, and it is now law, and they're starting to implement it. So if you're, like Steve, ISX Cummins 565, his engine is much older. It's a 99. He won't be able to go into California with that truck. And that's going to sweep across through the blue states, the liberal states, like this one. My engine, 2003. In my trucks, 2001 and 2003. So if they force us to stop using these trucks, God help them, because there's a lot of old engines, and there's just not enough money in the shipping and hauling of these products to justify going out and buying a newer truck or a new truck. It just isn't. I don't think there is. Do you want to be a truck driver? Do you want to be a farmer? Now, there's a lot of farmers that use older tractors. I am one of them. I only have 2 implements or 2 tractors that have, 2 pieces of equipment that have the interim 4, go downstairs with that, interim 4 engines. The 6210R has it, and it doesn't have, it's got early, the W235 windrower. The 6210R does not have diesel exhaust fluid, so that one may possibly fall in the category of too old to run. Now they're talking interim 5. I don't know what interim 5 is. And these pieces of equipment, these tractors and trucks, do not get good fuel economy. They just don't. Once you start messing with them like that, you're restricting them. It's taking fuel to burn soot, to turn it to ash, so that you're not putting it into the atmosphere. Well, it doesn't go, diesel exhaust doesn't go into the atmosphere. It goes to the ground. It's heavy. Sulfur is, they took the sulfur out. We need sulfur. That was basically what acid rain was sulfur from diesel exhaust and coal and all that stuff, but whatever. Not even going to get into it. So anyways, back to the row crops here. So the things that I learned last year on the regenerative side and the hybrid that I'm doing is that we really need to sweeten that soil up enough. Sweeten it meaning bringing up the pH. Get that pH to 6.5 and above. 6.5 and above. Now I'm going to be doing an experiment here and I'm probably going to start that experiment pretty quick. Secret sauce that I used last year, I still have some left. Uh, chelated calcium and liquid fish. I'm going to mix these three products together, and I'm going to run those in the row, in the furrow, not along the side, but in the furrow, right in the furrow, over top of the seed. The experiment that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to build an 8-foot box. I'm going to fill it with a foot deep, an 8-foot box, foot deep. I'm going to fill it with soil, not shitty soil, but decent topsoil from the field. And I'm going to cut a slot. I'm going to poke my seed, cut a slot in the 8 feet long. And I'm going to put seeds every 5.5 inches. And then I'm going to run a slurry of my concoction that I want to put on right in the furrow. I'm going to put that right on there in a heavy dose, like super heavy dose. And I'm going to water it in. And then it'll be in my basement or in my grandmother's, my aunt's basement, someplace where it's warm. There's grow lights down there. And I'll see what it does to the root system. You should be able to tell, what it does to the roots, if it burns them, or if it just says, "Hello, Dolly, it's time to grow," which I'm thinking, "Hello, Dolly, it's time to grow" is what we're going to do. I might do it down in my basement. I can put up grow lights. I've got some grow lights from when I used to start plants in vegetable garden plants, not marijuana, you freaking psychos. I've got those grow lights. You need a warm white and a cool white light to simulate the sun. And you put that on for 12 hours a day, and you have to warm the soil. So there's going to have to be some way I warm the soil so that I can get this corn to emerge and see how it emerges, see how it grows and what it does. And then I'll wait till it hits the lights, the grow lights. I'm going to put those about 8 inches to 10 inches above the 8 to 10 inches above this box, and we're going to monitor it. We'll see what it does. And I'm going to pull those plants out. I'll dig them up and check the roots to see what the mycorrhizal fungi is doing, or the rhizosphere around those roots are. And I'm going to see if there is a rhizosphere, or whether it burned, killed the rhizobum bacteria or the mycorrhizal fungi and the bacteria in the soil. Because if it does, then I'm not going to do what I'm going to do. I'm not going to do what I say I'm going to do. I'm going to modify it so that I can shoot it at the closing wheel just above the seed, right? I don't want to, because this fertilizer is going to go on. This concoction that I'm making is going to go on, because the chelated calcium at 1/4 to the acre in furrow should sweeten that soil up enough in that furrow to give that seed, or the biology in the ground there, enough calcium and pH, raise that pH enough in that area that all the bacteria and everything will grow and consume the fish and the secret sauce, and allow that to feed the biology right in that root zone, that initial seedling there. And then, of course, I will have my 150 to 180 units of applied N on top. So that starter fertilizer that I'm going to make, I just got to make sure that it doesn't hurt me, because if it hurts me, I can't do it. But if it doesn't hurt me, then I'm going to do it. And it won't take much. Those seedlings, they're primed for life when they get put in the ground. They're like, I want to go. And, it's going to be a matter of, God, how many gallons of this shit am I going to need? 3 gallons of fish is what I'm going to need in furrow. So let's do some math again. So let's say 3 times 1,300. I'm going to need about 4,000 gallons of fish. Going to need at least the same amount in secret sauce, so I'm going to need that. 4 and 4, so got 8,000. I'm going to probably need more than 4,000 gallons. What did I have there? Yeah, I did. Because I'm doing that, well, I got to do that twice. The secret sauce is going to need to be sprayed on top as a foliar when I do come back in with the contact and the residual. So I'm going to need 8,000 gallons of the secret sauce and chelated calcium. So 1,300 divided by 4 equals 325 gallons of chelated calcium to put in furrow. Now, most people that put chelated calcium down, they spray it onto the plant because the calcium is then absorbed into the plant and then goes right to the roots within hours. And it will sweeten the soil around the plant. If most of you don't know, I'm going to give you a little insight here. A corn plant regulates the pH that is needed to support itself. Now, if your soil pH is super low, it's not going to regulate enough. It's got to fight on its hands. So it's going to be using the calcium, the available calcium that's around it, and the exudates that it has. So it takes up calcium and then it will exude the carbohydrates, and the microbiology can actually adjust the pH on its own and maintain a pH. So healthy soils do maintain a pH. Sick soils and they can raise pH and they can lower pH. So my idea with the chelated calcium is just enough, get that pH in the furrow to a neutral or close to neutral as I can. Even if it's a little bit of alkaline, it'll regulate itself back down as it spreads out through the soil. So, as water moves it through the profile, it'll regulate. The corn will regulate it. Soybeans will regulate it as well. Not going to put fish on soybeans until it's actually growing plant. If I do the fish, I might just use the secret sauce. I like the secret sauce personally. I think it does really well. But chelated calcium and secret sauce, that's the way to go. But 325 gallons of that. What did I pay for that stuff? I paid like 12. 325. That's $4,000 for the chelated calcium. Now $4,000 is that's 325 tons. 325 tons of lime. So that's 325 acres worth of lime, and which is fine. I don't recommend not putting lime on. This will be in conjunction with a ton of actual high calcium lime. So I'll be spreading lime this winter, and then I'll run the VT over my cover crop, and then when I go and plant the corn, I'm going to run that liquid concoction that I've got over the seed trench, and so it'll all kind of work together because the high calcium lime is not going to start to work right. It doesn't work really fast. It takes a little bit of time. Now, I'll tell you, where I had lime and I ran out of lime, I had a 21-acre field, I ran out of lime. I can tell you right where I ran out of lime in the herbicide side of it. And the pH test weight where I had the lime was above, it was 58 pound test weight. Whereas where I didn't have lime, it was 55 pound test weight corn. So the density of your grain is going to increase as your soil health increases. So there's just a lot of benefits to doing this hybrid way of farming. So a load of corn that I took yesterday was 57 pound test weight. When Steve was hauling, he had 58s. He had 58 point something. He had 57, 58, 58.3, I think was the highest that I saw. And that was all on ground that had 2.5 tons, 2.5 tons of lime. So plus the calcium from the compost, because I put compost on that ground too. Compost, I got to start hauling compost here pretty soon, but there's also another product that I'm going to be getting. We used it years ago, and I'm not really going to talk about it too much until it starts coming in. It is an organic fertilizer, and it is something that I used back in 2000 and up to 2006. So from about 1991, 2001 to 2006, we used this product, and we used to get corn test weights up to 62 pounds. No joke, 62-pound test weights on corn, because it is just a microbiological feast, that stuff. So that's another thing. Ton of that to the acre. A ton of the microbiological organic fertilizer to the acre. A ton of lime to the acre. Secret sauce to the acre. My concoction in furrow, which is 3 and a quart. In furrow, of course, diluted with water at a 10-gallon, it'd be 15 gallons to the acre. That's how I got to set it up. So it'll run 15 gallons to the acre. I got to figure out how to calibrate that stupid corn planter because I don't know anything about the way that pump works. So it'll all be, 15 gallons to the acre of overall product, but 3 and a quart. So that's 6. It'll be thick with the fish and the secret sauce. So you kind of got to be careful with how you do it. But that's my plan. It's going to take an effort to do this and, to get it all in a timely fashion. I will have the 2 corn planters running where the other corn plant, the 12-row corn planter is running. I don't think there's nothing going to go in furrow, I don't believe. Unless I could. I mean, I have those tanks on there. I usually just fill those tanks up with water for weight, because it takes weight to get that corn planter to penetrate. But this new corn planter is much heavier, so I don't think I'm going to have much problem with weight there. So that 7,200 corn planter is a heavy son of a bitch. Plus that 500-gallon tank. It won't be full all the time. It'll only be full, when it's full, and then it gets empty, and then you got to fill it back up again. So there's a lot of things that I'm going to be doing, experimenting with. Cover crops in the spring, 365 acres of cover crops I will be seeding down in the spring. It's going to cost me about $60 an acre. It's $1 a pound. That sounds like a lot, right? $60 an acre. You get it in as early as you can, like the end of March, when things start to warm up. March, early May, April, March. When things start to green up at the end of March. I'm gonna spin it on and VT it in. Spin it on, VT it in. Sit back and wait till the first week of June to plant that corn through it. Then I gotta VT it again to terminate and plant through it, and that'll give me cover. It'll give me potash, it'll give me phosphate, and it'll give me nitrogen. And I will do the same secret sauce concoction that I'm going to be doing on that. So what I guess I'm going to ask is anybody on the East Coast here that's watching this in my area, whether it's Pennsylvania, I don't really want to get, you can go to Maryland, Delaware, in that area, and still have, seed varieties that'll match well here. New York, in those areas. Tell me what you're planting, seed corn wise. What brand of seed corn you're planting? I want to try some Hefty. I want to try some Beck's. I'm going to try this Cropland. I'm going to try some of the Hybrid 85, I think, if they've got a Roundup Ready Liberty Link stacked variety. I mean, I could just do Liberty Link or Roundup Ready. I don't need Liberty Link. Glufosinate to me, it's a good product, but it may damage the microbiology in the soil, whereas the Roundup really has zero effect to it. Because once it hits the ground, it's inert. It's not even in the ground. So it just breaks down. It is a salt. So, we'll see how that goes. But I just want to know. So leave your variety in the comment section there below that you use. I also will be planting a very short season variety early, an 85-day, give or take a few days. They're all pretty much the same, 84, 85, 86, 87-day corn. Let's just say 82 to 90-day corn. I'm probably going to plant 150 acres of that. And then I will go on to my longer season corn, which is going to be a 107. And 107 day, I'll plant a bunch of 107 day. And, probably 400 acres of 107 day. And then I'm going to skip the 105 and the 101. I did not like those. There was a 97 day and 94, 95, 96, 97 day that I'll plant a bunch of. And then I'll finish it off with that same short season variety when I plant through the wheat if I don't put soybeans in. So I could have anywhere from 1,300 acres of corn to 1,700 acres of corn. 14, 15, 16, 17, 1,800 acres of corn. At least that's what the plan is. 1,800 acres of corn. 1,800 times 98. So that'll put that seed corn bill somewhere around 175,000. No matter what, my seed bill is going to be somewhere just shy of $200,000. And then, of course, you got the fertilizer, nitrogen. Times hold on. Yeah, that's another $350,000 worth of nitrogen. Very little. The only thing that I will add to the ground other than nitrogen, and at this point I have no intentions of putting anything other than nitrogen on, because of I'm going to need $500,000 to do this. $500,000 in inputs to do this. So that's what it's going to be. And then we pray for rain. We don't have to have, like deluges of rain like we have in the past years, but we pray for rain, because at $500,000, that's a lot of money. Most people don't spend that much money on a house and property. We spend it as farmers just to get the seed in the ground. Fertilizer, it would be more than that if I was going to go the full program without the cover crops. So, and technically, the cover crops at, what I've got into the cover crops are going to be $50,000 by the time it's done. Because this mixture that I'm going to be putting in the spring, and I will, let's see, I've got this book here. I will probably try some of the King's Agri seeds here. Understanding Cover Crops. This is the book I'm looking for. So there is a really nice cover crop that I want to try. There's a lot of different cover crops depending on what time of the year you're putting them in. And this company here, King's Agri Seed, they can help you out. So let's see, cover crops. Guide to cover crops. Early spring planted cover crops, page 58. And I'm going to tell you what it is. Early spring planted cover crops. 3-way clover mixes. That's not what I'm doing. I'm going to plant something called Raise Crazy Spring Cover mixes. Raise Crazy Summer Mix. Summer Solar Mix. Oh, there's my spring. Where are you? I know that he has one. Raise Crazy Summer Mix, deep south through Pennsylvania. There's a late summer and fall. Where the heck is this? Anyway, there is... God, why in the heck am I not seeing this now? They got all different kinds of stuff. So I'm going to plant that. Late spring to summer planted. Sorghum, Sudan grass. There's all kinds of stuff. Early spring planted cover crops. The Raised Crazy mix is actually a 8 species cover crop. Why in the heck he doesn't have that listed here? Yeah, maybe it's in this one. Spring and summer cover crops. Cool season cocktails. There we go. I knew it was in here somewhere. Raised Crazy fall mix. Small box booster. Soil builders. Raised Crazy spring. Alright. This new mixture is designed with the same goals as the summer and fall formulations. A dual-purpose soil improving cover crop. The high quality forage. Now you can chop this for your cattle. This mix provides quick spring nitrogen for the following crops, recycled nutrients, build soil health. This balanced mix contains a total of 8 species, grasses, legumes, and brassicas. Okay, so when you do those 8 species, they all kind of work together. And I'm going to throw sunflowers in with that when I plant that. Some people wonder why I want to do that. Sunflowers put down a taproot quick, right? To tap into those deep, tap into those deep nutrients. And if there is any form of a compaction layer at the 4 to 6 inches, by the time I get into it in June, that sunflower should be, the taproot should be somewhere 8 to 10 inches deep. And that'll allow that corn root to follow that sunflower root down and eat the nutrients that are, feed off the nutrients that are in the bottom. And sunflowers have a pretty good heavy-duty stalk with a lot of, cellulose in them. And that cellulose and sugars is just a feeding ground for microbiology. So anything that the sunflowers have brought up from deep will be available in the reproductive stages of that corn. So I have to do that, and that is going to be $60 an acre. So at $60 an acre, 360 times 60, it's going to be $21,000 to put that cover crop in, that spring cover crop. So there's going to be a lot of money that's spent. We're looking at $500,000 to probably $600,000 just to put that corn crop in at 1,800 acres. But, we get the weather. Even if we don't get the weather, what I've learned this year and what I'm doing to conserve moisture with these cover crops and laying them flat. So when you have a hay crop that's standing straight up, even though it's dead, it is still pulling moisture out of the ground. Those roots are still working. But when you lay them over, you crimp them over, it seals that off. It stops that moisture from coming up. And it will lay it flat. It'll cover the soil so that the soil temperature doesn't get too hot and that the weeds, your wheat seed bank doesn't say, hey, I'm 100 degrees now. It's time for mare's tail to pop up, or it's 120 degrees now. It's time for cockleburr to pop up, or it's cockleburr and Jimson weed and hemp dogbane and all these other. Well, hemp dogbane grows on rhizome, so that's not gonna help you much there. But it'll cover it. It'll cover it up and keep it from being a problem, and it'll be easier to control them with your residuals and contact herbicides. So with all these things, I'm preparing for a drought. Now, the nice thing is that when you have healthier soils and it builds organic matter, you can build 0.5% of organic matter in a growing season, if you do it correctly. With all the biomass that's on the top, it's a no-till situation. It'll soak up that moisture. It'll hold that moisture longer. I can tell you where I had soil that was wet, and I planted it wet. That was where it dried out the fastest, but the cover crop was not as healthy there because of the heavy, wet soils. But you're never going to get away from those. You can help them with that, but you're never going to get away with those. But there's just a lot of things that I learned this year that I'll be implementing this year, and every year is not the same. We could be going into a wet season, or we could be going into a drier season. Now, the vertical tillage machine will cut slots. I'm going to cut those slots about 2 inches deep. I've pretty much decided I want those slots cut to the depth of the seed. No deeper. No deeper, because that is the depth that I want those slots to be cut, because I want the calcium that I'm going to put on to go that deep. The lime to go that deep, because those roots are going to be feeding off the top of that soil, the top 2 inches of that soil anyway, and it'll be protected, and there will be plenty of moisture there, so everything's going to work longer because it's not going to dry out and turn to dust. Planting in the dust, people say, oh, plant in the dust and your bins will bust. Well, that's true, but when you plant, you've got to have rain after that. So plant in the dust, and your seed will be set. The seed will set nice in the soil as long as you're planting into moisture. I'm not going to have a problem with that because I'm in clay soils. So anyway, that's what I'm going to do. So when I cut slots, that'll actually open it up just a tiny little bit and allow the top 2 inches to dry out enough faster than what I was dealing with this spring. I was a week behind everybody else, a week and a half, 2 weeks behind everybody else in the area that had sprayed off their cover crops. Don't spray your cover crops. Do not do that. Plant green. Plant into that green. You can roll it first. You can roll it second. It doesn't matter. Just don't dig up your seed. But don't spray off your cover crops until you've planted that corn. Give it a few days, because when you run that vertical tillage machine over top of these cover crops, it's going to trigger a response in the plant. That plant is going to say, hey, I've just been bitten off by a cow or a deer or an antelope or a grizzly bear or whatever the heck you got that's eating plants. And it's going to trigger that response in the roots, which is going to exude the sugars, the carbohydrates, and everything else that is needed to spur the microbiology in the soil to say, hey, we got to go get calcium, we got to go get magnesium, we got to go get zinc, we got to go get phosphate, potassium, and we got to bring that to these roots, because we got to break it down for these roots so that this plant can recover, because without the plant, we're going to die. That's the response that it triggers. That's why this spring, when I did this, I planted and waited 3 days to kill the crop, to kill the cover crop. And then that takes 4 or 5 days to die back anyway. But in that time, it's exuding all the exudates into the soil, feeding the microbiology. And in that time, my cash crop, my corn that I had planted, has sprouted, taken root, and has started to grow and started feeding this microbiology. And the secret sauce that I put down is also feeding the microbiology. That was the whole point in the secret sauce, was to feed the microbiology, so when I killed the cover crop, that it would just continue to grow, continue to feed, continue to live until I had enough root mass from the cash crop for the microbiology to continue to thrive, grow, and break down the nutrients that I needed. I had plenty of everything. There was nothing, even in that drought, I had no phosphate or potash deficiencies, only on one farm, and the reason for that was it was planted too wet, and it stayed wet for a very long time, so the roots were inhibited in their growth. So by putting the secret sauce down, I fed that microbiology. When the weather did straighten out enough, I had green stalks all summer long. I had no striping, no streaking, no dead tips, nothing. Once it got a root mass down and things were good and it was going for water, I was quite happy with the results. Not on all of it, obviously, because all of it didn't get the necessary rainfall. So there you go. Anyway, I've been yakking for an hour or so. Hope you understood what I said. If you didn't understand what I said, I'm sorry. If you think that what I said was bullshit, then go back to farming the way you've been farming. Don't worry about me. But when you're looking at a magazine like this, and I suggest reading this magazine, especially if you're a young farmer, read it. There's a lot of things in here. Don't fall for the BS, though. There's a lot of BS as well. It's just, there are pages upon pages upon pages of this. Gaining ground. Here's one. Gaining ground. Soil health and erosion control, not climate change, drive expansion of cover crops. See that? So you got erosion problems. There's really no need to there's no need to what do they call it? Strip till, not strip till. Strip farming. It's not strip till. Strip till is different. But there's no need to strip farm all that ground like they are doing out in, say, Wisconsin and stuff, if they have a good cover crop program. Stop plowing after you harvest. Stop doing that. Spin on a cover crop. Get that living root in the ground. Level out those terraces, or whatever you want to call them, those strips. Level them damn things out. Get yourself some, I'm not saying all of them, but you could probably take more than half of those strips out. And, instead of farming around these damn things with 50 million point rows, you can farm over them. Leave a grass strip between if you want. I know that how farms work, they were doing that. Outlining with their ag leader and their row shutoffs. I'm not going to spend that much money on that corn planter. I got switches. Bing, 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 bing. I can do that. So, and I will do that. But when you start looking through this magazine and you're seeing that there's, cover crops, and this is not Organic Farmer. This is Successful Farming Magazine. And I've read a lot of the stuff in here. And as for no-till planters and stuff, if you're going to be planting green, take off the row cleaners, take off that no-till coulter in the front, take it off. It is taking pressure off of your openers. That's all that thing is doing. I mean, the row cleaners will just jam up, but the no-till coulter, that is taking down pressure off of your opener, and you're going to suffer in the consistent seed depth. I did that with the planter that I've got. It was not a no-till planter. I made it a no-till planter. This planter that I just bought, it wasn't a no-till planter, but when I'm done, it will be a no-till planter. So, yeah. Yetter makes some really good closing wheel stuff. IntelliJect fertilizer opener. Not doing that. Because I don't have to worry about acid, really acidic or alkaline fertilizers. The soil health things, this amazes me because your planter liquid system shouldn't have limits. Ours doesn't. Who is that? That's Precision Planting. You also have to be careful here when you're looking at these magazines. Precision Planting makes some really good stuff. ESET, VSET meters, vacuum meters. ESET vacuum meter, that's what I have on the new one. Precision Planting finger pickups, those are great. I've used them for years. They're on my original 4-row corn planter. I put those on there, and it made a really big difference. You can plant a little faster. You can have better singulation. Down tubes or seed tubes, get the right seed tubes, the Precision Planting seed tubes, along with the Precision Planting meters. And the Precision Planting closing wheels, they're great. But I'm going to tell you something. They're pricey. They're $1,700, $1,800 a row. Oh, high five on that. Okay, I'll be right down. I'm done. Precision Planting makes really good stuff, but you got to look at it. A, how fast does it wear out? Closing wheel systems. There's a lot of good closing wheel systems out there. Case IH actually has a really nice closing wheel system. It has 2 discs, and it kind of like loosens the soil around, after the seed trench, and then spiked wheels to put it in, or not even spiked wheels. It's I like the Furrow Cruisers. I'm going to use Farm Shop closing wheels on the new one because I have heavier clay soils, and the Furrow Cruiser has a rather wide lug on it. And the problem with that wide lug is that it's just too wide of a surface to actually crumble crumble the sidewall in the heavier clay soils when it's a little bit too damp to put the corn in the ground. So the farm shop ones, they're narrower spike. Looks like the same as the Furrow Cruiser, but there's a depth shoulder so that it will go into the sidewall and then hit that depth, and the depth is on the inside so that it actually firms the soil around that seed, taking out any air pockets and allowing for a better seed emergence. So that's what I'm going to be putting on the 24-row corn planter. And, that sort of fun stuff. It's always going to be fun stuff. No matter what we do in this world, it's going to be fun stuff. Be happy with what you do. Be confident in what you do. Make educated decisions. Don't do something because somebody else did it or is telling you to do it. Go out. Look, YouTube is a great place to find information. The internet is something that has made agriculture great. You can go, and if you see something that you like, just try it. If you see something that other people like, but there's people that said, hey, I bought this because YouTube farmer such and such said that this was the greatest thing since sliced bread. I brought it to my farm and it did dog shit. It was worthless. So, you kind of got to look at it. Like, I used the Furrow Cruiser. Why did I use the Furrow Cruiser? Well, I wanted a spiked closing wheel, but I knew that the spiked closing wheels, like the Yetter ones or anything that was steel, that was an actual spike that's stuck in the ground or has an angle to it, those things wrap in planting green material. So can't do that. Planting green farming, you cannot use a metal spike closing wheel. You have to use something like the Furrow Cruiser or like the Farm Shop's Germinator. It's called the Germinator. I like that, and I'm going to try it on that corn planter. I'm going to put it on all of them. You can try Copperhead Ag. Copperhead Ag is sold by Thunderstruck Agriculture. Thunderstruck Ag sells Copperhead closing wheels and things like that. I think Copperhead is the Furrow Cruiser. The Drill Cruiser, I used those, had great luck with them. So there's like the closing wheel arms that I was going to have to replace. They were like $100 a piece or $89 a piece from an aftermarket company. Or for $30 a row, I can put the bearing type on from Copperhead Ag or Thunderstruck Ag. Copperhead Equipment, Thunderstruck Ag. You can get it from there. But anyways, I'm done. Have a nice day. See you later. I'm going to go eat my breakfast.